Good morning and welcome to Marzano's Instructional Framework Part 1 Canvas course. This course will focus on design questions 1, 6, and 2. I'm here with Amelia Larson, who is our Assistant Superintendent for Student Achievement, and we are here to discuss why these design questions really are the beginnings of the framework and the most important as we go forward. So, Ms. Larson, can you explain why is design question 1 such an important design question and the elements that are within?
When considering where we're going, that we really want more of the learning to be owned by the students, and we have to think about our foundation. And design question 1 begins with that foundation that is necessary so students have clarity about where they're going. So when you think about elements 1, 2, and 3, that includes the scale, includes the monitoring, it includes the celebrating success. Mm-hmm. You must have those 3 components so students are able to own more of the learning. They understand where they are going and they are able to see where they need to go next in order to achieve the desired outcomes. Yeah. So it's a critical component.
Yeah. Now I know within design question 1 there is scales, which of course is in element number 1 when we create learning goals and then we actually create the scale. And then of course element 2 where we use that scale to track student progress, and then element 3 where we celebrate success based on improvement on that scale. Tell me about why scales are so important for not only teachers but most importantly the students.
Well, like I said before, it provides clarity about where we're going, what is the outcome of the desired outcome of what we are doing. So it provides clarity for the student, but also it helps the teacher monitor over time where students are going. Without the scales, it becomes more difficult for the students to monitor themselves and for the teachers to monitor the students and make the necessary adjustments to make sure that we get to the desired outcome. So if you don't have the clarity of the scales, how are you really going to monitor for desired effect? And how are you going to really celebrate?
Absolutely.
What are you celebrating? So to be more deliberate, you need the clarity that the scales provide.
I agree. And I know in our professional learning community facilitators training, one of the things we stress is that if you have that well-designed scale for the students, it leads you directly into creating a very well-designed learning experience. Correct. Through a lesson plan. Creating common assessments. If you already know what your critical content is chunked out over a scale, it's very easy then to transition that into how do I assess this critical content going back to that scale. Yeah. We know that it's going to be a learning process, the scale development, but it's definitely something that as we get better at, it's only going to improve our students and how well they do.
And I'm seeing evidence of that. In my visits to classrooms, I'm already seeing in elementary, middle, and high that when it's well done and it's not generic, because you're not going to get your desired effect from generic scales. It's a way to begin, it's a way to learn, but you're not going to get there. So I'm seeing frequently teachers that have the generic idea on top, but then they have the content specific on the bottom. Right. And I'm seeing students in different ways, there are different ways of doing it, being able to monitor themselves and how well they are doing across that journey. Yeah. So it's exciting.
Very good. All right, our next design question focus is design question 6, establishing rules and procedures. Why do you believe this is a very important design question?
Again, going back to who owns the learning. As the traditional model of education has been that the teacher has owned the learning and we dispense the information to the students. As we transition to a new way of creating powerful learning experiences, we have to make sure that students know how to collaborate, that they know how to process together, that they know how to disagree. If you don't go through procedures and routines, it's going to be scary for you to let go of all the control. So it cannot happen. You cannot go into deeper levels of learning. You cannot go into applications if kids don't have the foundation of understanding rules, understanding routines, understanding procedures.
Yeah, and as we transition into design question 2, I think design question 1 and design question 6 really create the conditions for learning to occur.
Correct.
So if we don't establish rules and routines, we can design a fantastic lesson, but if we don't explain to kids how to navigate that curriculum through rules, through routines, by setting those learning goals, by tracking that progress, it will definitely diminish the learning experience for the students. So I think we kind of call that the appetizer, if you will. Like, it's setting the conditions for us to then learn.
And it's setting the conditions for engagement to occur.
Right.
Because in a classroom where the teacher is in charge and speaking for 50 minutes, you don't have meaningful engagement. You really do not.
No.
So this is a condition, a critical condition for us to transition more of the ownership to the students.
Right. Okay. Well, let's move to those lesson segments addressing content. We've chosen to focus in our course and in our district on Design Question 2, which is really interacting with new knowledge. Why is that our focus right now?
Well, it's just setting a foundation. It's not at all where we want to stay.
Right.
But again, we are starting to use this as a growth model versus just an evaluative model. And so it's important that once we create what you call the appetizers, the preconditions, that we are on the same page about how do you ensure that kids move towards the highest levels of learning. And if you don't have the foundation of how you introduce new knowledge, you're never going to be able to get to the deeper levels of learning. So what we want right now is for teachers to really pay attention to the elements within Design Question 2. And are they, after they introduce, providing that feedback loop that allows the students to interact with that new knowledge and allows the teacher to get some feedback about, are they getting what I want them to get?
And I want to add to that, because we've done a lot of work, obviously, in our trainings around Design Question 2. And the one critical component of Design Question 2 is that we do begin deepening in Design Question 2. And if you look at the way it's structured, you have 6, 7, 8, and 9, which is identifying critical information, organizing students into groups to interact, previewing, and then chunking into digestible bites. Those are primarily teacher-led.
Correct.
Of course, when you organize students, you're organizing to do something, but those are very directed by the teacher, because this is new content.
Correct.
And the students don't know the content. So at that point, the teacher knows the content, and they have to set up some conditions to start that. But when you look at the rest of those elements, processing of new information, elaborating on new information, recording and representing knowledge, and reflecting on learning, those are all transition now to the students to begin to deepen. And I'll say that if you don't do that, DQ3 is really struggling, because they are not prepared to deepen, because they have not really understood that new information. And the one more point I want to make about it is, it's very interesting, and this is a topic that we discuss a lot, that recording and representing knowledge, which can be called, writing down notes or taking information down, it seems like that should almost be a teacher-led activity, because when we think about taking notes, we probably pop into our mind, well, yeah, I remember taking notes in school, and there was somebody on the board writing notes, or it was an overhead and we were copying notes. But it's a student-led element, because they don't take notes until they understand the material. So the traditional way of writing notes while the teacher does, there's really no learning going on. They're just copying notes. Here, they take notes once they understand content. So those notes can really become their own interpretation of what that teacher's saying.
Correct. And what a great way of bringing kids together to actually be co-note takers, so they can begin deepening and exchanging what are the key ideas that we need to take away. But again, it's not where we want to live, but in order to move all the way towards application, to real life, so kids can actually give back. I don't think that we can get there without knowing how to introduce knowledge in a better way.
I agree. Well, we hope you enjoy the rest of the course. We wanted to give you this little preview to really understand why we are focusing on DQ1, DQ6, and DQ2. And we look forward to you taking the course and, of course, providing us meaningful feedback for future improvements.
Thank you.
Thank you.